Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers, but here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there. And let's continue to help people help animals.
It is none other than the Animal Control Report with your hosts,
Lee
and Ley.
That for those of you that's listening, that's Ashlee and Ashley Bishop. Yeah, that's correct. And both of their husbands have a first name that starts with T, with the letter T. This is crazy. And I'm Daniel. What if I found a single Ashley Bishop and I married?
Or you could just change your name.
I mean, you can be a male Ashley, right?
Actually, I have this masculine spelling of Ashlee, Ashlee. You could be Ashleigh.
Oh God. Don't be one of those.
Welcome to the Animal Control Report. This is going to be an episode you're going to want to watch on our YouTube channel. That's Keep It Humane. Keep It Humane on YouTube. There's going to be a lot of photos and some.
Or Spotify.
You can. Yeah. Good point. You can also watch it on Spotify. So please check that out on your local Spotify podcast listening device thing, whatever that's called. Anyway, I feel like, hold on. Are we actually recording? Because, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I have these problems. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway,
we are.
How are lives?
Life is lifing.
Chaotic.
Yeah, I got a foster dog right now who's had an enucleation this week, and it doesn't look pretty right now. It's draining. We are in the phase of draining, and I'm trying to explain to my husband that's going to look a lot worse than it does better soon.
You did name him Popeye, right?
We put out a pumpkin for suggestions for pirate names.
The fuck is a pumpkin?
Like a pumpkin container.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I should have been more specific.
Suggestion box in the shape of a pumpkin.
There you go.
Got it.
Words, descriptors. Yeah, my husband likes Davy Jones.
Okay.
A lot of people are liking Captain Jack. So I don't know. We'll see. Well, he's mingling in the pack, not so great right now, but I can't also fault him because he just had an eye removed and his testicles removed at the same time. So, I feel for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Both ends of the body.
That's a tough one.
But other than that, we're great. It's hot. It's so hot in Texas right now, y'all. Holy hell.
Where's your patch? Can you see your patch up here? Somewhere up here.
My patch?
Isn't there? Where are you at again? No. It's Tyler. Nope. There's a Tyler patch up here somewhere.
That's north of me, but no,
right,
we're not cool enough. We don't have a patch yet.
Well, you send it to me when you get it.
Okay.
Also trading patches. So if anybody's listening and wants a patch, I got extras. So send a message. We actually got a really good message from one of our listeners about the conversation and the topic about really pushing lobbyists to make that thing go through that I keep talking about, where it's pets should be considered sentient and we should be able to get tax breaks. I would say up to 4. I think 4 is reasonable. 2 dogs, 2 cats. That's my thought process.
So Washington State currently is working towards like Texas is as far as getting them recognized as not just being property.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's something that they're actively doing.
Speaking of Texas, oh wait, I wasn't there. I was in New Mexico recently at a wonderful, their conference was incredible. It was actually, I didn't know what to expect because it was the first time I was going there, and you just never know, you just don't know. And I was only there for probably 28 hours. It was a weird, quick trip. But I was sitting there with a couple sponsors. Who does the tables? Are those sponsors?
Exhibitors.
Exhibitors. Mhm.
Exhibitors.
We were having a great conversation, and then there was a person that came up, and it was an interesting conversation. Now, I think I might have started the conversation on the wrong foot, Bishop. I'm waiting for you to be like,
Duh. Was it just one foot in your mouth or both?
Well, here's what I did.
Was it tennis shoes or
No, here's what I did, because like I was like, they asked like, that like typical like, what do you do? And it's like,
Mm.
I tried to be a little bit creative and fun, and I was like, well, I like to run, I like to hike. Like, can I get to that stuff first, and then I can tell you what I do professionally? And I think that kind of put the conversation in just down the like, because I didn't answer it traditionally. If I would have just been like, this is what I do, like I'm a podcast host and I do animal, right? Like if I would have done that, I think the conversation probably would have been fine. But because I was like, hey, do you mind if I just tell you the things about me that I do fun first? And then it got really weird. And this person, I will tell you, and I'm not going to name names, but a very large organization that funds a lot of projects. I'll put it that way. And it was bizarre. They told me that a couple weird things, that they don't think the term no kill is used at all in the industry at all. They were like, in the last 5 years, we haven't seen it used once. And I was like, what about no kill 2025? And they were like, no, it's save them all 2025. And I was like, I wanted to pull out my phone and pull up the website and be like, no, it literally says no kill 2025. It was the weirdest conversation I've had in a long time. And then the other thing that they told me, and I was, I'm a card carrying member of NACA, and I do support NACA, but what I said is, it feels like there's a lot of officers in the industry that don't feel that NACA that represents them as a whole. And they were like, no, that's not true either. Like NACA has a great following. And I was like, no, I mean, they do have a good following, but if we looked at the majority of ACOs, probably not. If you looked at like, if there's 10,000 ACOs and they only have 1,000 members, I'm just throwing random numbers out there. I don't know. But the people that we talk to offline, they don't feel like it. And it was like everything I said, it was like, no, like that doesn't exist. You're delusional, basically, is what I was told. It was so wild. And then the two people that I was sitting next to in the booth after this person walked away, we all like, I didn't try to lead the witness or anything. It was just, those looks that you get. I was
Yeah.
like, what?
my face all the time?
Like, what just happened? And so if for whatever reason that person just happens to be listening to the show, I highly doubt it. Because I finally did tell them what I did. Remember, I think I screwed that up by not telling them right out the gate, but I finally did tell them what I did. And then if they are listening, come on, let's have a conversation, because I want to clarify some of it. It was I'm still, like, I'm talking about it a week later, I'm still in shock.
That's odd, but I also live in a state where it's inevitable, you know what I mean? So for us, it's a conversation we have with everybody. Are you no kill? Are you no kill? Are you no kills? Because of the mass population and the reputation that Texas has. So
Yeah, I don't know what the motivation behind that. Like, I'm always, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like I mentioned to set this up, like I was wrong because I should have just went in and led with, this is what I do. And I tried to be like, I don't know, maybe I just tried to have like a different personality about it. Like, let's get to know me as a human first, and then
You're not human.
well, let's get to know me as a whatever first, and then I think that backfired. So if they're listening, I also am sorry that I took an untraditional route. Man, that, like, I'm not joking. Like, I didn't even try to look at those people after, because I didn't want to lead the witness, and they, like, that face that they gave me, they were just like, that just happened. So anyway, we got a cool case to talk about today. This case, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about a cruelty case that I worked on in Denver, and this was right before COVID. This happened in September of 2019. And if you're watching on Facebook, no, we don't have that. Spotify, and I mean, we do have Facebook. You just can't watch the whole podcast there. Spotify. What's the other one? YouTube. you can watch it. And I'm going to delete names, so I'm not going to say names other than myself. But as far as our witnesses go and our suspects,
Oh,
and my dog is that's Mooney, folks. You know, he loves the ocean. Like I just said the word, he was like, "What?" So we're gonna walk there after the show. But anyway, all right, y'all ready?
yep.
All
Y'all
right.
ready for this?
All right, here we go. So we're going to read it in bits and pieces, and then we're going to talk about some other things because I don't want to go through all of it and give away vet reports. On September 10th, 2019, Denver Animal Protection received a complaint through Crime Stoppers about an abuse on South Clay Street in Denver. There was no complainant listed on the Crime Stoppers report, but it indicated that a short, chubby Hispanic male was abusive to his dog, who was later identified as a dog named Lobo, an intact male 1-year-old pointer mix. The report stated that the defendant or suspect hits Lobo with a belt and closed fists and walks him on a choke chain where he's seen pulling and choking him while spraying a water hose in his face. So we'll start with that. It was a crime. Do y'all know what Crime Stoppers is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a Crime Stoppers report, and nothing was changed there. How he was identified was exactly what was in the report, and we get that report. And a lot of times with Crime Stoppers, you're like, well, there's no information to go off of. We have very little information, and even in that report, there's not a lot, right? There's not a lot. So now on
Nothing really condemnable.
correct.
At least.
I mean, it's the reasonable suspicion, right? We go out. Is there a crime? Let's investigate. So on September 11th, the next day, I, Daniel Ettinger, arrived at the address and met with a witness. The witness stated he was in some shape or form related to the defendant and moved in approximately a month ago. He stated that the owner of the dog owned the puppy named Lobo, and that the suspect or defendant was not home and didn't see him much due to his work schedule. He said that he did not like, when I say he, the witness that I spoke with said that he did not like the individual that owned the dog much and would contact me if he found out he was abusing the dog. So we got that. Now on September 12th, another officer with Denver Animal Protection actually met with the suspect. They met with him. He claimed ownership of Lobo and provided current rabies vaccination from Banfield Animal Hospital. The officer asked him if he had recently had any negative interaction with the dog. The owner stated no, he didn't have any problems with the dog. The officer asked him if the dog recently got into the trash or urinated or defecated in the house. The suspect said no. He stated that he's still house training the dog. The officer then advised the suspect of the report that was received through Crime Stoppers about the dog being hit with a belt and closed fist. The suspect stated that he didn't even own a belt, and he didn't hit his dog. The suspect stated that he didn't yell at the dog, or that he did yell at the dog, but he didn't hit it. And then the case was closed by that officer at that time. Okay. So based on that information, where we at with, I'm just checking in with Ashlee and Ashlee.
I mean, all of that sounds suspicious.
And let's be honest, that's kind of, we get that answer all the time.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, and no disrespect to any of the officers, even former coworkers, that's common. And it's common for us to just close the call right there.
Yep.
It really is. It really is. And if it wasn't for the next set of things we're going to read here, it may not have ever been reopened. Okay.
I mean, to be honest too, though, I feel like sometimes in our positions, it's so hard to take things to the judge, unless it's like absolutely solid. You know what I mean? Like a lot of hearsay stuff, or
Yeah.
it's so hard for us on our end.
Well, and I guess my thing too would be, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the way that was written, because you stated in the first part that the first witness didn't like the owner of the dog.
True.
And I struggle putting that in a report because now you're putting the
Bias.
possibility of, well, bias, but like you're giving the defense the ability to say, well, they didn't like him, so they made it all up.
Absolutely, 100%. However, that's part of our job is to also list ways of like, there's terminology for this, and I always screw up the word, so I'm not even going to try to say it. But like, our job is to provide evidence that supports both sides, the
Sure.
defense and the defense and the prosecution. So in my opinion, we never want to leave out things or omit things in order to make our case stronger. If that makes sense.
Okay. I
That's
can see that as well.
Agreed.
Yep.
yeah. The one thing, and not to knock the officer that went out there in September, but what wasn't written, and it may just not have been written, is they didn't see the animal. There was no examination.
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all see that? Yeah. No
Yeah,
examination.
I'll let you say that. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's huge in my opinion. It's huge. And I say that all the time. Document, document, document. Because if we went out in September and the dog looked a certain way and now we're about to go back out, we have something to compare it to.
So what you're
Agreed.
saying is don't fuck up the crime scene?
Shout out if you're watching. If you're watching on YouTube, that is a partner podcast in the Keeping Humane podcast network. I just happen to be wearing that T-shirt today, so shout out to the Don't F Up the Crime Scene. But we're talking about a crime scene, so it's perfectly fitting. All right. On December 23rd, 2019, Denver Animal Protection received another complaint through Crime Stoppers. The complaint read that the suspect punches, chokes, slaps, and kicks his dog. They put it's a Labrador mix, and it's about a 1-year-old. He hits the dog with a back stretcher and keeps him on a choke chain.
I'm sorry, a back what?
Scratcher.
I heard stretcher, so I was thoroughly confused.
I might have said who knows with me.
No, you said scratcher.
On December 22nd, so the day before, about at 1 a.m., the suspect was beating his dog and sprayed it with bear repellent. They tried getting videos and pictures, but it's now impossible as the suspect takes the dog into the room to abuse him. I can hear banging, smacking, as well as the dog crying, whimpering, and gasping. I was able to get a picture of the dog after a beating. He threw up in the kennel and that he sometimes kept in. His license plate number is bleep, and my name is bleep. I will give whatever information is needed. Please save him. So that's on the 23rd. On the 24th, I actually met with the
Reporting party.
the reporting
RP.
party, the
Yeah,
RP,
RP.
the reporting party, and we had a conversation about, and here's how the conversation went. They stated that they own the home, but the suspect was living in the basement with their girlfriend for the past few months. The suspect stated that the dog Lobo was sprayed with bear spray inside the home on December 22nd by the suspect. The RP stated that at approximately 0100 hours, their mother woke up because she thought she was having an asthma attack. She stated that the daughter was heard slamming sounds and the dog Lobo crying. She stated that they went to the room where they heard, with the suspect's room, I should say, where they heard one of the individuals, there were two individuals down there, say, "Stop beating the dog and use bear spray." Then the witness stated that they had to open every door and window to ventilate the house. The witness stated that everyone exited the home, including the suspect and the suspect's significant other, but they left the dog Lobo in the room with the door closed, where the bear spray was dispersed. So that's a lot. It's a lot to digest there.
But you now have a named party,
Mm-hmm.
so you at least have that going for you.
And we have multiple witnesses that saw or smelled or
Heard.
tasted. Yeah,
As long as they're willing to make statements.
man, that's
Mhm.
always a big thing.
Agreed.
All right. So that same witness told me that she was the one who filed the original Crime Stoppers in September. Stated that the dog was left in the kennel in the laundry room in the basement, and noticed that there was urine and feces in the kennel with the dog. And he was in there for approximately 6 hours, which, okay, that's not great, but that's not like, that wouldn't be something we would remove a dog for. It would be an educational opportunity.
Yeah.
Correct.
When she went downstairs, she heard Lobo crying, and the suspects, with his knees on, basically his knees on the chest and his hands around Lobo's throat. So basically choking the dog. She told him to get away from the dog or she'd call police. And then the suspect stood up, kicked the dog twice in the ribs. She went back to check on the dog later and saw that he was in a crate and vomited. So now we got some really thick stuff going on. Now he's intentionally abusing this dog and in front of other people. The witness basically told her mother that she heard banging downstairs in the bathroom. She saw Lobo relieve himself in the kennel, and that the suspect was giving Lobo a shower. She noticed that Lobo had a cut to his left shoulder and was bleeding. The witness went to the bathroom and noticed the lower tile of the shower is cracked. I can talk. She asked him what happened, and he told her that he was attacked by a raccoon. I don't know how that would crack a tile, but did not recall the exact date of when the dog was attacked by a raccoon.
Oh, rabies.
Well, rabies, and we know raccoons ain't no joke. It'll take you out.
Yeah.
And then again, I know it's been said already, but the witness says she sees the suspect often walk the dog on a choke chain and hold him up on his hind legs until he gasps for air. I'm not a fan of that training method. I know some people still use that training method for a quick correction, but like to hold it all the way up on its hind legs until it's gasping is overkill. No pun intended.
And unfortunately, though, it's used a lot professionally.
It really is. And I've been having that conversation a lot with individuals in the military specifically about that. And that's something that they want to change.
Yeah.
Absolutely want to change it. Okay. Let's get back to the story. I'll tell you what, it's hard reading the story without saying all the names that are in there. And
you're doing great, though.
We could, I mean, technically we could read it with the names because the case is closed, but just because it's such a high profile case as far as like this vicious type of stuff that was done, I'd rather not.
I think it's always in good taste to not, regardless.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right. So the witness told me that the suspect was not home, but Lobo was in the backyard tethered, and you'll see photos here now. We'll start to add these photos. So here's the cool thing is she owned the home. Can she allow me in the backyard?
Yep.
Yeah, she can.
Sure can. Can she allow me in his bedroom?
No.
Exactly.
No.
But she can allow me in the backyard. And so she did. And I saw Lobo. He was tethered to a tree. And the first thing I saw, and you'll see this in the photo, is what I described as a large golf ball sized mass on the left side of his face. He had access to fresh water, but the doghouse he had was not adequate, and he was unable to use the house as it was standing upright, not allowing for any entry. The witness stated that the girlfriend of the suspect was home, and so I asked that individual to come speak with me. So I've already, at that point, when I saw that, and you saw it in the photos, right? Like that was, to me at that point, with all the statements made, I was like, I know I'm impounding this dog.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess the only thing that would have stopped me from impounding the dog is if like the girlfriend of the suspect was like, I'll take it to emergency vet right now, but I would still go there and likely impound it anyway. Like if she wanted to pay for the exam, that's fine. Like I would have supported that, but I would have likely still gone and then still impounded. But that'd probably be the only difference. All right, let's keep it moving. So the girlfriend comes to the backyard. She stated that the dog belonged to the suspect, and Lobo is mainly an inside dog. I asked her about the mass, and she stated it's been like that for a few days. She was uncertain how it happened. I asked about the bear spray, and she stated that her boyfriend came home drunk and just started spraying the room. Without provocation, she stated that he didn't spray it at Lobo. I asked her how the suspect disciplined Lobo, and she didn't say much. She said She isn't around Lobo that often. So I impounded Lobo for a cruelty investigation, and I issued what was called the cost of care. And so the cost of care is a bond that had to be paid within the first 10 days. And it calculates 30 days of care. And if they don't pay it, the dog becomes the property of the impounding agency. And the girlfriend called the suspect on the phone, but there was no answer. Before I left, I met with another witness at the home. And she stated that the suspect had a violent past. She stated that he and his ex-wife were very physical to each other. He moved from Bishy State from Texas recently because of the divorce. She stated that she's seen him show Lobo his urine when he relieves himself in the house and has heard what sounded like hitting and Lobo whimpering afterwards. That witness let me speak with a juvenile who stated that they heard the suspect on several occasions come home late. They heard what sounded like hitting and Lobo crying in the room downstairs and stated that it happened a lot. So now we're bringing in the link. And it was confirmed that he had domestic violence in his past, like a record of domestic violence, I should say, not just a report of it, a record of domestic violence in his past. And he like the family, I must say, very brave of this family to be as open and get involved as much as they did, because that's not easy. But I think sometimes you extend that olive branch and then you're like, you can come stay here, but then it's like, nah, like this ain't working out, bro. Like we can't have you in this house. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's, I think, what started to happen. Okay. So then I transported Lobo to the shelter where he was examined by the chief veterinarian at the time. Radiographs were performed, which, and you'll see these radiographs here in the
YouTube and Spotify.
Thank you, in the YouTube and Spotify. But I want to hand this over because now we're going to get into veterinary speak. So would one of y'all, since you have the vet tech backgrounds, love to read the next?
I don't even have it open yet.
Well, right. I know Ashlee does, so.
I was looking at photos.
All right. It says radiographs were performed, which uncovered multiple fractures. The 9th and 10th rib on the left side showed remodeling, which suggested fractures happened at least 2 months ago. The reporting party said that the suspect kicked Lobo in the ribs around that time frame. The right and left zygomatic arch, the jawbone, both had a fracture, and there was a fracture to the left acromion transverse shoulder. I guess the reporting party saw bleeding to the left shoulder area recently. The veterinarian noticed discomfort and swelling around the spine. The radiograph showed bone loss and soft tissue swelling on the spine from segment L1 to L4. That injury is consistent with blunt force trauma, as the area appeared have been hit with a closed hand, foot, or by an object. The veterinarian concluded the bony remodeling in 9th and 10th ribs suggested previous fractures of the ribs. The fractures had completely healed at time of examination. Based on the estimate age of the dog, the rib fractures had likely taken place at least 2 months prior. Fracture of the left jaw was more recent, since the fracture line was still visible on the radiographs. It is estimated that the fracture likely took place between 2 to 4 weeks ago. Some remodeling of the bone was evident. Fractures of the left shoulder, dorsal spinous process of L1 and L3, and the right shoulder arch likely occurred around the same time frame due to the degree of periosteal proliferation at the fracture sites. It is estimated these fractures took place between 3 to 5 weeks ago. There are 6 separate noted fractures on Lobo over the period of a few months. Those fractures would have been caused by blunt force trauma. The suspect has been knowingly torturing Lobo by striking, choking, kicking, and spraying the dog with bear repellent.
It just makes me mad. Matter of fact, I read this probably, I would say like 6-8 weeks ago, and I literally started crying. I'm not even gonna lie. I have nothing to hide here as far as like emotions. Like the shit made me mad. And unfortunately, um, though we impounded Lobo, due to his exposure to this violent past, like we weren't able to make him an adoption candidate, due to his behavior, and so he was euthanized. And that was like one of probably 5 in a row that really kind of set me in a downward spiral. And I remember getting talked to at work because I made a comment to our behaviorist, and I wasn't like saying the comment because I was mad at them. I was just like, well, it doesn't matter, or whatever I bring in is just going to get euthanized anyway. Because I was so like down in the dumps, because it just felt like every time I brought in a dog from a case like this, like it, like, you know, could we have sent this dog somewhere to get the rehabilitation that maybe it needed? Or, I mean, again, herd pack mentality. It's like, we ended its suffering and its fear of humans as well. So like I was able to justify it, but man, this shit made me sad when I read it.
It's awful because, I'll bring up something a little bit different than a case like this, but when you bring dogs in that are starving, like on just the brink, and then you get them all back to, health, and then they're just absolute monsters.
Mhm.
It's just it's hard. You put in all this work, or you find out all this stuff about the animal, and then here you're left at the end, and it's just not safe for the public at the end of the day, you know? And how many people are willing to take on an animal like that? I mean, it's a huge risk.
It is.
And I mean, there's also I have one that hopefully one day we'll actually be able to do a case study on. I gotta wait. It should be going to trial here soon. But what I can say is that, ultimately we ended up having to put the dog down because of the severity of the injuries. And all I could continue to think about was that the dog was incredibly young.
Mm.
And because of the extent of the injuries and the length of time that it went on, that this dog literally knew nothing but pain and suffering for the entirety of its life. And like I struggled through that case because of that. But
Hard. I mean, we really do deal with hard stuff, and it's okay to like embrace your emotions too. I want to say that for all my tough guys listening and tough gals listening, like it's all right to shed a tear here and there. Like I'm not perfect, and I'm not above admitting that either. Like this shit made me sad. However, we're gonna get into the next steps here, with kind of the outcome, um, of the case. And so this case, I remember, um, I was like, this was one of the ones that, like when you're doing it, I remember asking. We had a really, and I still have a decent actually relationship with our old prosecutor who sent me an update on this case just a few months ago, because I used it as a case study in one of the classes that I taught, and I didn't know. I was like, shit, are we doing the case? And I was like, I don't know what the outcome was. I was like, I need to find out. And I tried doing my research, but I couldn't find it. And so I reached out. But I remember asking our DA at the time, I was like, hey, um, can I go to the arraignment? I want to just be there in case anyone has questions. We can't let this dude slide. Like there's just no fucking way. And so I remember this is right before COVID too. So then I was thinking like, shit, this is going to be a COVID casualty case too. Like, the guy's going to get
yeah.
off on whatever technicality because the jail's full. So I remember going to the arraignment, and he's already in custody. They arrested him on felony cruelty, which is great. And he's
Nice.
already in custody. And they have like, I'm sure you've all been there where like there's like a glass like waiting room, and they have all the people waiting to talk to the judge like in that glass room. And it was his turn, and I just remember it was either his public defender or our prosecutor. So the DA that I know well wasn't able to be there, so it was a different prosecutor. So that was even more of a reason that I wanted to be there. And somebody was like, "Can you mute the box?" So when they mute the box, that means that nobody in that waiting room can hear what the charges are. And they do that especially, so they'll do that for chomos, And then they'll do that for animal abusers because they know that those, like, if you find out this dude beat a dog and then you're in with everybody else, you're going to get your ass beat. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Some jail justice there, if you will. So anyway, they mute the box and they basically give him his arraignment, and then they send his ass back. And I was like, all right, cool. And then I left the department. And so I didn't know what happened. And then I finally reach out to our old prosecutor. She's great, man. She's one of my favorite. So I reached out and I was like, what was the prognosis? No. What was
The outcome?
Yeah, what do y'all think the outcome was?
Bro, if he got off, I'm gonna be very upset.
6 months.
Okay. So I'll read kind of somewhat verbatim. Good outcome on this case. Originally, they offered a split plea, which would have been a deferred judgment to a felony 6 conviction on a misdemeanor 1. However, failed probation, so ultimately convicted of the felony 6 aggravated cruelty and the misdemeanor 1, and was sentenced to the Department of Corrections on a probation
Revocation.
Yeah. Thank you, whatever that means. And then he ended up doing 18 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a good outcome. And I hate deferred judgments on cases like these. That should not even be an option.
Well, I even have it. I have a problem with it too when it's something like public health and safety. You know,
Exactly.
somebody doesn't get a dog in a rabies quarantine. I mean, come on.
Like a deferred judgment on maybe some like neglect that was like super unintentional, just educational wise, but a deferred on a fucking intentional like beat the shit out of a dog type thing. No, I'm sorry.
I've had deferred prosecutions because the person was 19 years old and the judge didn't want them to have a felony on their record, even though they starved 3 rabbits to the point of them cannibalizing each other. Yeah. It's deferred prosecution is ridiculous, but
in certain cases it 100% is. Makes me mad. So that's that case. And I'm sure several of our listeners have had similar situations, and we got to make sure we're tying this all together. Like he was an abuser in a relationship, like we have that documented, and now we have this documented. And so it's like, is he going to strike again, or is he going to have some sort of like therapy? And I mean, he shouldn't own animals again, in my opinion.
oh, absolutely not.
Yeah. So
Absolutely not. Well, and even, I mean, looking at that X-ray of the skull,
his spine, let me show you these because and this will be obviously they'll be able to see it in the video, but like they did some cool stuff with his spine for photos, and it was just like, ugh, what did they do to this poor dog, man? Makes me so angry.
well, and the nice thing is too, though, that you clearly had a veterinarian that knew what they were doing to be able to determine the not restructuring. What's the word I'm looking for?
Be able to determine like the length of time,
like the forensics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the forensics, and like figure out like how old some of those breaks were.
Yeah.
And to look for all of them.
Oh God.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then I'll show you the x-rays too, but it's unfortunate that like any animal has to suffer through this, to be honest. And like I wish the dude would have gotten longer, but 18 months in, I mean, and it feels like though he got 18 months, he got the 18 months because of he failed probation, not because of the actual crime itself, which is just, I mean, it is,
which sucks, but
I mean, it's better than nothing. And
so Dan,
Yikes.
for the photo that is with the red clipboard,
yeah,
and the shaved spot on the back, was the intention there to show the lump and the inflammation?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So You could see that there's a few other photos, but you could see that there was swelling, and so we wanted to document the swelling before we X-rated.
Well,
X-rated.
and I
X-rated.
think that I really hope our listeners, even if you're listening in your vehicle, go back to this episode, and because that is, I would have never thought to take a photograph that way, um,
Mm-hmm.
to document that, and that's a fantastic way to be able to show that. So take a look at that so that, you can learn from that and see, how you can incorporate things like that into your own investigations.
Yeah, and that was brilliant. That was the vet staff. That was not my idea. And so it's something that I will absolutely move. You take it with you, that you add that to your toolbox. But that was our veterinarian staff. So shout out to them for thinking about that, because it really paints that picture.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, even that last
Yeah.
radiograph you sent is rough. You can
It's
see
the
where.
The whole thing is rough, man. I mean, again, like I cried, like 4 years later, 5 years later, reading the case, like it brought back those emotions. Like we do an emotional job, and I just have to take my hat off to everyone that's in this industry. We say it all the time, how much we really appreciate what you do, but even more so, like it's a tough world that we work in, and I'm just grateful that there's a lot of us out there to help, stop and prevent future issues like this.
Well, and I mean, you said he had a significant other that you didn't say anything about children, but that's obviously always a possibility.
It is, yeah. There were no
So,
children that we knew of at that time, but I mean, who knows with this guy? Who
I
knows?
mean, that doesn't stop anything for the future, though.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me, is like, but what is our bandwidth as a society? Like, can this dude be on a lifelong probation? Like, obviously not. But that's what it kind of needs. Like, we need check-ins, regular check-ins with people like this, because left to their own devices, he's gonna go drink again. Like, I
Hmm.
really wonder, like, did the dog poop in that? Like, you always wonder, like, did the dog poop in the house when he sprayed it with bear spray, or was he just drunk and like find some like, does he find like excitement through being
Mm-hmm.
abusive? And if that's the case, man, go lock that motherfucker up forever, man. I'm tired. Like, we
Yeah.
don't need you in our life. We don't need you in our society. All right, we need a positive note, because I can't end it on this sad shit.
Hmm. Positive notes. We need to have a segment of positive notes.
Yeah, we should have a
No.
positive note. If you want to give us a positive note that we can pull from at these
Yeah.
episodes, just email Daniel@keepithumane.com, Daniel@keepithumane.com, and then we can have a bin of positive notes.
Yeah, or
I
good
like that.
stories. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea. Or good stories, funny stories. I love going to the local pages. People go out on calls for dead dog that ends up being a trash bag or
Yeah.
You know what? I have a positive note, and I have not shared it. Privately, so I'll just share it publicly, because I know you hate it anyway. So
Uh-oh.
we had one of our listeners, and shout out, they know who they are. They've been reaching out quite regularly, and they just wanted to say, they wanted to tell me that Ashlee Rodriguez Bishop, ARB, has been a great addition to the show. So that's positive.
Oh,
Yay.
well,
Thank
I
you.
agree.
thanks.
I agree with them.
I agree. Yeah, I'll third that. Yeah, or second.
You guys have been awesome. And, to all the listeners, y'all are doing such a great job. Y'all don't hear it enough. I posted it in one of the group chats, one of the ACO pages here recently, just out of frustration for a situation that happened, and just, the support that we can all gather, because we all go through the same things. It's just great. And then, you two, I can't thank you enough. We check in with each other all week, and, it's great to bounce ideas off or just let us know what's going on during the week. And, y'all have been a great addition to my life, and I really appreciate y'all.
Aw. That's the kind of happy we need to end the show with.
All the warm and fuzzies.
We appreciate you too, and we thank you, and hope our listeners feel the same way. I think they do. We really appreciate them, or you, or however that's said, because you're listening right now. So we appreciate you. Thank you for being a friend of the show. Please review because it does stuff with like the algorithm. So review, like, share, rate, tell your friends, tell a friend to tell a friend. Check out the website, keepyouhumane.com, and always remember to help
Animals.
people. I don't know,
Yes.
whatever.
Help animals.
Help animals, help people, help people.
I don't know.
Keep it humane.